Hello friends and APOCABOX subscribers, Creek Stewart here, and welcome to the 2015 December APOCABOX Skills Challenge. Before we start, I just want to take a second and wish everyone Merry Christmas. This is by far one of my favorite times of the year, and I hope you guys are having an awesome December. The Skills Challenge, this box, is how to make pine pitch glue. It is one of my all-time favorite survival skills. I've used it many times in the field for practical applications. If you watched the first season of Fat Guys in the Woods, you saw me make it primitively in my quick tip in the middle of the show. In your kit this month, you have a complete assembled pine pitch glue kit. I've had it specifically assembled and designed for APOCABOX subscribers, so you're not going to find this kit anywhere else in the world. It is truly an APOCABOX exclusive. Inside the kit, you're going to have several items. First of all, are instructions. They're more detailed instructions for what I'm going to cover this morning, so definitely read through those. Number two, you're going to have a metal tin. It's about the size of an Altoids container. It's matte black. That is going to be the tin where you mix your ingredients and heat things up. You're also going to have 2 popsicle sticks, which you're going to use to stir your ingredients, and then you're going to have 3 bags of 3 separate ingredients. The first of which is a bag of crushed charcoal, which is a key ingredient to pine pitch resin. Now, crushed charcoal is not just ash from the fire. It is the black chunks of charred wood that you can crush up with a rock. There's instructions on how to do that in your kit here. In addition to the charcoal, you're going to have a processed bag of pine resin, which can be naturally found on the exterior of pine trees. A lot of times insects or birds or limbs will break and damage the pine tree, and out of that damaged spot will ooze pine pitch or pine sap, pine resin. That is the same stuff that you have here in your kit. This is just processed a little bit more to remove some of the bark and the dust and the dirt that naturally collects on that in the wild. Third, you're going to have a bag of beeswax, which is a natural binder for your pine pitch resin. Now keep in mind, I've made pine pitch glue in the bush, in the wild, on many occasions with just 2 ingredients, with just charcoal and the pine pitch itself. That ends up being a fairly brittle pine pitch glue. The addition of a beeswax, or some people will use crushed up deer poop as a binder for your pine pitch resin. The addition of one of those 2 ingredients really helps to make your pine pitch glue less brittle. So those are your kit items. The only other 2 items that you're going to need to complete this challenge are really simple. Obviously, you need a heat source. You can use something as simple as a candle. You can do this over a campfire or your wood stove at home, but for those of you who don't have access to a campfire or a wood-burning fireplace, you can easily use a small candle. So that's actually what I'm going to use to demonstrate how to make this stuff today. And then secondly, you're going to need a pair of tongs. Now I've just gone out into the yard this morning and cut a small maple branch about 1/4 inch thick and just bent that in half. And that makes a very suitable pair of tongs. And this is a great pair of tongs to use in the field, in the bush as well. Just take a green limb, a green branch, and bend it in half. Oftentimes, the fibers that run up the side of that branch will not break. They will bend and make a really excellent joint for a pair of tongs. Besides the ingredients in your kit and these 2 items, that's everything you need to make pine pitch resin. Obviously, you can do this primitively in the bush, and I've done this many times. But for now, use the items in your kit and master the skill in a controlled environment. I'm a huge fan of that process of learning. So let's get started. Now, as you can see, I've pushed in nice and tight so that you can see every step of this process. Step number 1, you're going to open up your tin. Really simple. We're going to take our little bag of charcoal. We're going to open that up and we're going to dump about half a bag into this little tin. Now this is some seriously finely processed charcoal. This is about the best of the best stuff. When you're doing this in the wild, you're probably not going to be able to process this down this fine, but that's okay. I've never gotten mine primitively this fine either. So there's half a bag of charcoal, and then we're going to add half a bag of the pine resin, which is labeled R in your kit. So we're going to go half a bag of pine resin. And you're going to experiment a little bit as you do this. You're going to find out maybe your glue is a little too brittle. Maybe your glue isn't brittle enough. And then we're going to add a little bit, just a pinch of beeswax here. Just a pinch. And this is our natural binder that prevents our glue from becoming just too brittle. There we go. Now, as you can see, I've got all of the ingredients mixed up here in the tin. It's not rocket science, and there's no exact values to any of this. I'm using my popsicle sticks to stir, and I'm going to hold this tin because it does get hot. I'm going to hold this with my tongs that I've made. And then I am just simply going to heat this tin over the fire. Now, as I'm heating this, the pine pitch is beginning to melt, as is the beeswax. And I'm just constantly stirring and mixing all of those items together. The consistency that you're looking for here is almost like a taffy, like a Laffy Taffy, I guess is the best way to describe it. We're just going to mix all of this stuff together. You may find that you've got too much charcoal in there or too much pine resin to get that consistency. If you do, just make up for those ingredients by adding them as you need. And mine looks like, if you can see, it's hard to see that darkness there, but mine looks like it actually needs a little bit more pine pitch. So I'm going to add a little bit more pine pitch to mine and keep going. There we go. There we go. I've got some pine pitch added to mine. This process of melting and stirring should take anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. I'm not going to keep you on hold here the whole time. So I'm going to go ahead and finish melting mine and processing mine down, and then I'm going to get right back to you as soon as it's finished and ready to go. Okay, now my glue is getting to the consistency that I really like. You can see here it is very gooey and very taffy, or like a really thick caramel. And this is the perfect consistency. Now, you could let this cool right here in the tin and use it later, or you can make what I like to call a pitch stick. And that is simply taking your glue while it's still gooey. This is a hot melt glue. So this is glue that you're gonna have to heat up and then use. Now what I like to do is let it cool down a little bit. You can lick your fingers if you want, but you can now shape this pine pitch glue right on the end of a twig, like a green twig, or in this case, the popsicle stick. And this makes an excellent way of carrying this glue. Now, once this dries, it's going to be rock hard. It's still a little gummy right now because it's very warm, but it's easily cool enough to touch and mold into a pitch stick. Now, practical applications for a pine pitch glue. It was used extensively to mount arrowheads and sticks. It was used to seal canoes. It was used to make knives and tools. It was used for fishing lures to help glue primitive cordage to primitive made fishing lures. It was used for mini torches and fire starters. It's got all types of practical applications. Now in your kit, for a practical application, I've included 2 items so that you can immediately use your glue to make something and prove that it works. I've included 2 of my favorite fire starting tools of all time. One is a Ferro Rod. It's in a little red Ziploc bag inside of your box. This is a mini Ferro Rod. And then the second is a really nice chunk of fat wood, which is pine resin rich wood. A lot of times the pine resin will collect in pine trees at stumps and at joints in the tree. This is where you can find fat wood, which is a great fire starter. Now, the project to use your glue is basically making your own Ferro Rod fire starting tool out of these 2 elements. Now, you can do that in a variety of ways, 3 in fact. You could lash your Ferro Rod right to your piece of fat wood. You could glue it right to the outside, but my favorite way of actually doing this is to drill a little hole in the end of your chunk of fat wood. It's a 3/16 inch drill bit, and glue your Ferro Rod right into that. Once you're done gluing it using your pine pitch glue, which we'll do here in a second, once you're done gluing it, this fat wood chunk can be left as is, and you can scrape off shavings and start your fire with your Ferro Rod right into your fat wood shavings. Or you could trim this down to make it a really nice little thumb grip. I think I'm gonna leave mine just like this, throw it in my pack, and I've always got a means of starting a fire. I've got a Ferro Rod, which I can create a spark with, and I've got fire tinder. You can light fat wood shavings on fire using the sparks from a Ferro Rod if you shave them fine enough, and I'll show you how to do that. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to heat up a little bit of our pine pitch resin right over our candle, and we're just heating it up till it's nice and shiny. Don't catch it on fire because it'll be a little torch. This stuff is extremely flammable. I'm just heating that up a little bit at a time until it's just gooey enough to smear onto the end of my Ferro Rod. It's going to get a little bit on there. There we go. It's starting to stick on there. There we go. That's going to be plenty on that Ferro Rod right there, if you can see that. It's not very much, but you don't need very much. See that pine pitch resin on the end of that Ferro Rod? Perfect. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to heat that up so it's nice and gooey. Right on the end of that Ferro Rod. And then I'm going to cram it right down into the hole in the end of my fat wood. And once that dries, it is going to be permanently set. It's already set up just after a few seconds. Okay, so to make our fire here, I'm going to shave off little shavings from our fat wood. Resin-rich shavings. It's going to take me a few minutes here. I'm just using my John Russell sheath knife that came in the August box. You can see there's a lot of, you can even see the shininess of that resin once you cut into this piece of fat wood. It's an incredible fire starter. So we're using pine resin quite a bit in this project, actually, aren't we? Got my knife at a 90-degree angle on this fat wood, and I'm shaving off really fine shavings here. Just using little teeny tiny push cuts. Switch it to the other end. Getting into the good stuff there. There we go. And I'm just gonna put this stuff together in a little pile. And show you how well this fire starting system works. Now for my Ferro Rod Scraper, I'm going to actually use the Speedy Sharp, which came in a
a previous APOCABOX. I didn't know this, but several people pointed it out. The Speedy Sharp, which is actually a knife sharpening tool, a little pocket knife sharpener, makes an incredible Ferro Rod Scraper. Just scraping that ferro rod right into my fat wood shavings, and there we go. There's an all-in-one fire starter. Our fat wood tinder with our ferro rod glued into place using pine pitch glue. Incredible. What a great little fire starting system this is.
So there you have it. Pine pitch glue in a handy little container and a self-contained kit that you can make right at home. And you can package it on a little popsicle stick or a green stick that you can throw into your pack. And obviously, all of this can be done completely primitive in the wild. And you come out of it with a really cool DIY ferro rod fat wood fire starter. Regardless of how you apply your ferro rod, whether it's in a hole, glued to the stick, or lashed to the stick, either one works just fine. This is an incredible fire starting tool, which you just saw. So my challenge to you is not only to make this ferro rod and start a fire with it using the fat wood from the handle, but also to go out into the wild and try to find some of these ingredients primitively. Crush your own charcoal from your campfire. Look at the next pine tree that you see, whether it's in a community park or at the edge of your yard, and look for pine resin. Try to source that naturally and scrape off the little pieces of bark and the dust that might be on top of that. And try to make your own pine pitch glue from completely primitively and naturally sourced items outside of your glue kit this month. Guys, I enjoy so much teaching you these skills every other month. I've got so many skills yet to teach. I think the February APOCABOX Skills Challenge is the blockbuster of all skills challenges. I have worked incredibly hard with a vendor to put together a kit that, quite frankly, doesn't exist before this one. And I'm really excited for you to see the February Skills Challenge. It is a very cool skills challenge DIY project. So thanks so much for subscribing. I appreciate all of your input, all of your feedback, all of your reviews, all of your referrals, everything you're doing to help grow this APOCABOX community. There is now an APOCABOX Facebook group called the APOCABOX Bunker. Just search it on Facebook. A lot of people sharing ideas in there. Obviously, post pictures of your DIY ferro rod on Instagram using hashtag APOCABOX. I know some of you are going to come up with some really creative ways to carve this handle with lanyards and all kinds of crazy stuff. I can't wait to see your creativity. So until next time, God bless, good luck, and remember, it's not if, but when.